And it is time for the voice for real estate. Brent Ward is usually in the main chair, but Cleve Marsh is back with us today.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine.
Hadn't seen you in a few weeks.
It has been a few weeks, but tell me something. Were you speaking to me about that heat index warning?
I'm speaking to everyone.
Oh, I
Yes,
thought you were
but-
talking to old people like myself.
Yes, oh, well, like us.
Like us. Us. Hey, you do know that it's imminent, don't you?
Yes, boy, do I ever.
I'm
yeah.
talking about
Yours and mine both.
6 days, baby.
Oh, really? 6 days?
6 days.
I got about 6
Happy
weeks.
birthday to me in 6 days.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Another trip around the sun for you, right?
That's it. One more time.
Yeah, one more time.
Jimmy,
Yes.
thank you for having us on this morning.
Glad to
and
do it.
welcome everyone out there in Radio Land and you folks on YouTube to the CWTAR Central West Tennessee Association of Realtors,
Read my lips.
the voice
can
for
read it.
real estate.
Yes.
And today we have as our special guest Mr. Pete Dubuisson with
Yes.
National Property Inspections. Welcome, Pete. How are you?
Good, great. I'm glad to be back.
Well, we're glad to have you with us. Mr. Dubuisson
Yes.
and I, what? Sorry?
No, I was going to say, I thought you were looking at me for
I did look at you.
prompt. Yes, well, that's too bad. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well,
Speaking of looking at us, though,
okay, thank you.
Paul Schulze's back there behind the curtain with Worthy Road
He's
Studios. Yeah, the hand is here.
Let's see it, Paul.
Let's see the
Bring
hand.
it out.
Here it comes. Here it comes.
There it is right
There
there.
it is.
You know he's live and in person
That
today.
means we are also on the CWTAR Facebook page on Facebook Live. You can see us now, and you can archive it and see us later. I know people watch these shows over and over and over again just to see you.
Jimmy, that's why I wore this red shirt today, so I couldn't be missed.
Okay.
I would like to remind our audience
Yes.
that Mr. Dubuisson and his company, National Property Inspections, is an existing sponsor of the CWTAR show.
Yes, indeed.
And we welcome him today again. This is an important time, and lots of people are buying houses and selling houses, Pete. You are a property inspector. How did you get to this point in life?
Well, it wasn't by design. I was in the distribution business for a long time. I was director of distribution for Walden Books and Borders bookstores, but at some point I was recruited by a local book distributor in Jackson, and we moved here,
Yeah?
my wife and I. And
From where?
from the Brentwood, south
Brentwood.
of Nashville.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And we've been there for quite a while. And we came here, and after a while, that job didn't work out, and we decided that instead of continuing with what I was on, which meant I would probably have to move someplace else, Cleveland, Chicago, who knows.
Yeah.
And we've been in Tennessee for a long time and loved it. And more specifically, we loved the place that we found here. So I had two buddies from the Naval Academy that I had known for 35, 40 years. And they were already doing exactly this and liked it and said it was a good fit with our general engineering-oriented background and suggested I give it a shot.
That's pretty interesting right there. And how come no military? I mean, you were military. You went to the Naval Academy. You came out and achieved the rank of captain
Yes, sir.
in the Marines,
Uh-huh.
and then elected not to stay with it. And that's an interesting concept.
What part is interesting?
The fact that you didn't stay with the military, that's a deep military background right there. Naval Academy and then
Right.
achieving the rank. How many years were you in the Marines?
5.
5 years. So that's 9 years of your life. 9
Right.
years?
9.
9
Total.
years of your life, and that was enough.
That's right.
So,
Enough said.
Well, not
Jimmy, I
that
think I got the picture.
I had, wanted to follow my fortune someplace else, and in the Marine Corps, you have to do a lot of traveling overseas, and I had a family, and we felt that was the priority.
I understand.
Yep.
Well, if we were to talk about property inspections for a moment, and I have had some experiences with property inspectors in my most recent life, and I know that there are varying degrees of and varying levels of expertise, of quality, and so forth. So what are the credentials that you have as National Property Inspections owner in Jackson, Tennessee, that would cause me? Why would I choose you?
Well, it's specific training. Anyone that goes into this field has to be licensed by the state.
Ah,
You don't have to have been a contractor or a builder. In fact, there are some advantages not to having any preconceived notions. And I had to go to a specific amount of training for 2 weeks in Omaha, Nebraska. And I had to take a national exam. I have to get continuing training every 2 years. That's 32 or 36 hours of training to keep up on all the latest things. And you have to do all that to get licensed. You have to have a certain education background. And the main thing is, coming up after your training, you're required a certain minimum of training and then passing the exam. And then you have to continue to do that every 2 years.
well, you know, that's nothing like being a property appraiser. All those guys do is got to be able to read and write and count numbers, you know, up to like 9 or 10. Is that not right, Jimmy?
I'm going to give you a number to all of them that I know.
And I want to point out I can do that too.
You can do that.
Read and write.
Read it.
Jimmy, you know I'm kidding.
You're jealous. That's what it is.
I am jealous. I'm terribly jealous. Jealous is a good word. He's about to retire from his day job.
That's great.
Retire.
Soon.
And how imminent is that, sir?
6 weeks, more or less.
Pete,
And that's a great achievement.
that is wonderful.
I hope so. I hope so.
How long do you think it'll take you to figure it out?
About 20 minutes.
20 minutes?
I'll know at the end of 20
He's got
minutes whether I
this
did
working.
well or not.
Got this working.
Yep.
Pete, I asked you a question off air when we were sitting over there at the table not drinking coffee, and my apologies, I didn't offer you any, but on warm days I rarely drink coffee, so I don't think of it.
Me either.
Forgive me. So here's my question for you. Are you the cheapest property inspector in town?
I have no idea.
He does not know.
I hope not.
Okay. All right. Why would you not know what another one would charge? Because you simply try to do the best job that you can and be fair and competitive, I'm going to assume.
Yes.
Or you wouldn't be in business. You'd have to be
Right.
competitive.
You get a general feel of what competitive prices are. But the main thing is to spend the time in doing these specific inspections. I always tell people as you're going around and getting quotes, try to get a feel for how long the inspector is going to be at the house, because that has a lot to do with it. I sometimes hear people say, well, it was only an hour and a half. My typical inspection is 4 to 5 hours, and sometimes that doesn't include making the report, which might be another couple hours. So what you're charging for the inspection itself gives you very little insight into what the, let's say, the fee per hour or the amount of effort you're putting into it.
Uh-huh.
What I try to do with every house I go into is try to think, my daughter's buying the house. I have to make sure that she knows everything that she needs to make a good decision, but also be fair to the house too. You have to give people, I think what's very important is after the inspection is meeting with the folks who are buying the house. There's always going to be a list of flaws. Most times you're not going to have something outrageous, but you have to know the full scope of things, but you also have to understand the perspective and how common or not those issues are.
Mm-hmm.
I think almost any house that, every house I've inspected, it's been thousands, I've always had a list of flaws. That doesn't necessarily mean that the house is a problem. Usually isn't.
You made a comment that I want to delve into a little deeper. And you said you want to be fair to the house. If the house needs a new roof, it needs a new roof.
Absolutely.
It's sort of like telling the mama you got an ugly baby. You just have to do it once in a while, no matter
Exactly.
what. So when you say be fair to the house, how does that compute? I'm not with you on that page.
Okay. What I mean is that you're just not saying the roof is bad. There's water in the crawl space.
Okay.
You have to explain how water gets in the crawl space, how you can prevent it, what kind of consequences there have been, or if there hasn't been any, what it can be. But don't just say there's a problem.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah, you want to be fair to both the buyer, the seller, and the house, and make sure everybody has a good perspective of what's normal, what's common, what's serious, and what's not.
In the last 5 years, this is a good one right here.
Fire away. We'll
You
see.
ready? You ready? In the last 5 years, what would be the absolute most horrible experience you've had? And I don't necessarily mean with a mechanical or an engineering standpoint. You're smiling, you're chuckling. What is the most horrible experience you've had?
Well, I had a recent one. It's hard to come up with the most horrible. But it wasn't too long ago. My brother, who works with me doing inspections, his name is Chris, called me from a house and said, I opened the crawl space door. I put my flashlight in, and I saw some light staring back at me, and it turned out to be a couple of skunks.
Oh, that
That's horrible.
That won't work.
And wanted to know if that was a valid reason for not going to the crawl space. And I said, yes, absolutely. Well, just this past week, I was in a crawl space, and I got about halfway through and just began to pick up a scent. And I began to wonder and paying more attention. As I put my flashlight to the right, I saw something skitter by. Well, it turned out to be a possum. They put out musk too, by the way.
They'll bite you too.
Yes, it will.
So those are always interesting when you're deep into a crawl space and no easy way out. Have to get under ducts and squeeze and all that stuff. See something run by you. That's never fun.
56 or 7 years ago, my dad was a journeyman plumber, and for friends and for relatives, we would plumb houses and do plumbing repairs nights and weekends, and when I was off in the summer and he wasn't working for the plumbing company, we did that. And about 3 months into my plumbing career, Dad goes through a hole in the, what do you call it?
The foundation crawl space.
Foundation
crawl
crawl
space, yeah.
space. He goes in, and he's leading with the flashlight, and I've got a flashlight, and we're going in, we're going to do some kind of plumbing repair. I probably will never remember anything except what happened, nothing related to plumbing. So I get in and get about 10 feet in under there, and Dad's further over to the middle of the house, and he says, son, I want you to turn around and go right back out, and I want you to cut your flashlight off and just chug on out of here. Well, there's nothing a 12-year-old kid's going to do without asking a question.
Right.
I said, why, Daddy? He said, well, we got a snake in here. I said, well, where is the snake? He said, well, he's over the exit hole. Superman has never exited a building any faster than I did in my life. And in about 3 or 4 minutes, Daddy comes out with what turns out to be about a 4.5-foot rattler.
Oh, hello.
And he was above the opening, sitting on a sill.
Yep.
And he blinded him with the flashlight and hit him with a wrench, brought him out.
Wow.
I've never been under another house. I'm never going under another house. And Pete, I'm sorry. I question people who do. And I'm questioning you.
Well, I'm thinking about carrying a wrench from now on.
Yeah, good idea.
Something. A
Yeah.
machete or something.
Yeah.
But have you ever encountered a snake?
Oh, yeah, sure. They usually don't give you any trouble. They're very still, and they're sitting up on the top of a foundation pier. And when I see them, I crawl past them and give them their space, and
Oh, yeah,
they don't
that's why
bother
I'm
me.
questioning you. I can see that look in your eyes. You're one
I
of
haven't seen any
those.
rattlesnaks. I would react differently.
Oh,
to that.
Yes,
my
I would too.
goodness
Yes,
gracious.
I
Well,
would
South
too.
Carolina has lots of rattlesnakes, and I encountered that one, and it was
The
just...
possum, it briefly went through my mind that if he came too close, I'd play dead.
Yeah. He would. Why wouldn't you? Right?
Well, the rattlesnakes don't like that kind
No,
of thing.
they don't. No, they don't. I'm curious about that. When you go to do an inspection, you set the inspection up, and you said, it could last an hour and a half, could be 4.5 hours.
Well, it's not going to last
Yeah.
an hour and a half with me.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be.
More than that.
Yes, it's going to average around 4.
Do you prefer to have the homeowner there, or had you preferred to do it in their absence?
I think it's a good thing for an owner to be there the entire time. Most folks find that they don't care for it themselves, being around that long.
Right.
So what usually happens is that they come to meet with me at the end. I've got all the photographs on the computer. A lot of times it's within the form, most of the time, within the format of the report itself. So we go through everything, we talk it through, and we can go actually look and touch and see anything that they have more specific questions about.
Right.
Usually it's about half an hour or more.
Right. Okay. I would assume that the majority of your work is in connection with mortgages, with the lending process, or
No,
am
with
I
the
wrong?
buyer themselves.
With the buyer themselves. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
That's interesting that you say you spend time. You actually spend time with that person. You don't just email a report and say, thank you, where's the check?
Exactly. In some cases, of course, people are buying from out of state.
Yeah.
And I tell them when we first talk about it, once you get the report, take a look at it, give me a call back with any questions. We'll spend as much time on the phone as you need.
Yep, do it. Well, we're talking with Pete Dubuisson, National Property Inspections, and we've come to a break point, and Mr. Duke will take over for a moment.
I'll give it a shot. This show is a presentation of CWTAR, the Central West Tennessee Association of Realtors. Brent Ward is typically our host. Brent's out on assignment, as they say in the radio business today, and Cleve Marsh in his seat today. But in order to do this, we have to have sponsors, and we have 4 great sponsors, one of which is the show today, and that is Mr. Dubuisson with National Property Inspection. Is the number that I have here 467-6250? Is that the valid number should they need your services?
Yes, sir.
All right. You have a website or a email address we could pass
Yes,
on?
it's a www.mpi.com/Dubuisson.
All right. That's easy enough. That's
Dubuisson,
Yes.
Dubuisson.
That'll work.
How about that?
All right. Other sponsors, Leaders Mortgage Services, 35 Stonebridge Boulevard, and they actually work out of all of their locations here in the city, but that is their main mortgage. Mortgage is one of those things that I would say 95% of the transactions in the real estate business rely upon. There are some cash deals out there, but they're few and far between in most cases. And with Leaders Mortgage Services, they can get you into places that you might not know exist as far as the kind of mortgages that are available, having to do with down payments, lack of down payments, even some programs that will help you with the down payment. That's something that the general buyer or seller either doesn't know that much about. You need someone who is a professional in that field, someone who can guide you to the proper mortgage to make sure that all the puzzle pieces fit. And when you close that loan, you know that you can afford it. You know that they've done their due diligence, and they're going to put you in a program that will work for you. Leaders Mortgage Services, 215-6678. You're going to have to insure that house, whether you got a mortgage on it or not. Now, if you've got a mortgage, they're going to require a homeowner's policy on it. If not, you should require a homeowner's policy for yourself to protect the property, the contents, and all of the things that go with it. Angie Hooten Hughes, she is the agent for Allstate in this area. She has an office in Memphis, Tennessee, one here in Jackson also. The Jackson number is 668-1990. Not only can she help you with your homeowner's insurance, but your automobile insurance, your life insurance. She can package all that together, save you a little money, save you a lot of aggravation. So when you think insurance, think Angie Hooten Hughes. You will be in good hands with Allstate. And of course, Bird & Bird Attorneys. There is an attorney involved. There are titles to be searched. There are taxes to be reckoned with to make sure they've all been paid. Residential or commercial, they can do it all at Bird & Bird Attorneys. Title searches, title insurance. One of those things we don't like to think about, but foreclosures, yes, they handle that end of the deal too. They can do buy-sell agreements, commercial leases. The good thing about Bird & Bird, they've been doing it in this market since 1985. Charles Bird will review all the aspects of that transaction, including the research and verification of the title, the covenants, the restrictions, and any other things that go along with the land use like zoning or deed restrictions on that particular area. They do it all for you in one package, 424-7188, Bird & Bird Attorneys, and they are our great sponsors here on The Voice for Real Estate, which today is Mr. Cleve Marsh.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful job you have done there. I appreciate that. We certainly appreciate all our sponsors. Pete, question. We're talking with Pete Dubuisson, National Property Inspections, one of our sponsors. And is there a common thread issue that you see more than anything else in the homes that you inspect in West Tennessee?
There's probably a few, but I think one of the most common and leads maybe to the most issues is drainage.
Drainage.
Yes.
You mean to external drainage around the house?
External drainage around the house.
Ow.
It appears that not a whole lot of attention is paid to that in our general area. Maybe that's a whole country. I've never done inspections out of Tennessee. But if you don't have the ground around the house sloping away, if you've got level spots, or worse, if you've got a slope somewhere at the house that is actually leading back to the foundation, and you're on a crawl space particularly, water will find its way into the crawl space. It's odd. Sometimes that doesn't lead to big problems. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it leads to rot on the framing of the house itself. More often it leads to mold. The other big common problem we have in crawl spaces in general in Tennessee is the fact that we have, as you were just referring to earlier, humidity.
Yes.
And heat. And once the humidity gets into the crawl space, which it does through the vents, it then is hitting the wood in the house, and that wood is being cooled by the air conditioning ducts. You get that dew point, as you mentioned, happens, and moisture starts forming on the wood framing, and that leads to mold. So drainage and mold in the crawl space caused by air conditioning ducts, which we all have, is probably the most common thing.
Most common. Well, in my sincere desire, and I'm going to give it a need,
Okay.
1 to 10. I'm going to give it a 9.9. I wanted to be near the water.
Yes.
And you asked me early on how we recovered. I had a drainage problem
Yes, you
back
did.
in February.
The river was running through your
The river
basement.
was running through. Exactly. I had 5.5 feet of water in the garage. They require you, if you build in a floodplain, to build in a certain number of square feet of ventilation spaces that allow water to get out. It also lets it in.
Lets
I
it
don't
in.
mind telling you, it lets it in.
Yeah.
But that's interesting that you say drainage, because that came right to the forefront of my mind, the drainage issue of
Crawl space vents are in the codes now, but there may be come a time when they decide it's best to seal the crawl space off altogether.
it.
Yep.
Seal it off
Yeah,
altogether.
I've talked to several contractors, and that a lot of people are going to what they referred to as conditioned crawl space, where
That's right.
Either you're actually blowing heat and cool air under there, or you've got a dehumidifier under there, at which time you close the whole thing off.
Well, this garage that I described to you guys, it's a great big garage, and it has heat and air in it. And I'm proud to say that my moisture content now is always where it's supposed to be.
That's good.
But boy, it wasn't for about 3 months there. You wouldn't believe, just wouldn't believe. Pete, do you like crawl space houses or concrete pads?
Well, I don't want to be prejudiced.
You can be.
They've both got, things that are good and bad. Crawl spaces attract water much more under the house, of course, than slabs. Slabs generally are not going to have a problem with water underneath, though it can happen. If you're going to find often that there are issues of plumbing in the crawl space. If you just have someone coming through and doing a normal termite inspection, they might bump a pipe, not even realize it.
Okay.
You could have a leak going on under there that you don't know about.
Yeah.
I've been under houses where it looked immediately like the swamp, and a great swath of the framing was black.
Yep.
Because there was a tiny stream of water coming out of a pipe going right into the framing. Slab, generally not those problems, but if you do develop a problem, you can't get to it as easy. Sometimes you have to
Tear it
remove
up.
the concrete.
I've been there.
So that's the downside.
Do you live on a slab?
I live on a crawl space.
Jimmy?
Mine's a slab.
Slab.
Yep.
2 to 1. 2 slabs.
I lost again,
2
right?
slabs. Out. Yes, that. One more time. No. Slab.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All
You
right.
and I.
Got it.
Yeah.
It's. I mean,
Hey,
I
Mr. Schultze back here in the closet says he has a basement. What's the difference, Paul?
basement's underground. The slab is not, I hope.
The bottom of it is. So, Pete, if you differentiate yourself as completely as possible from other property inspectors that are available to the clientele in West Tennessee, you would give the top 3 things as being number 1,
Attention to detail.
attention to detail. West Point graduate, captain in the Marines.
Naval Academy, but that was
What'd
kind
I
of an
say?
insult.
Yes, you shouldn't have
Is
done
that different?
You said West Point.
Yeah.
I apologize. It's this brain. That's gray hair up there.
We have a little rivalry, you know.
A little
Yeah.
rivalry. Yes, I understand. I remember now. I did it wrong. Apologies. All right, number 1, attention to detail. Number 2.
Number 2 is thoroughness, and maybe another way to put it is caring about what I do. And as I mentioned before, thinking about it's my daughter buying the house, and I need to make sure that I cover everything that needs to be covered.
All right. Attention to detail, caring about what you do. Do you have a third? Would you like to add a third? The third
I think
thing.
those are technical knowledge is also very important. too.
Okay, 1, 2, and 3. I'm assuming there are probably at least one more. There would be at least one more group around who'd be capable of property inspections, but we'd like to recommend national property inspections and Pete Dubuisson. I know Pete personally. I've known him a long time. He is a fellow who takes care of details. And some of the business dealings that he and I had prior to him going into property inspections and my going into the radio, Pete covered the bases well in his former life. I'm telling you. He didn't miss much. When I put a quote in front of him, it got thoroughly picked apart. Got the job in lots of cases, but there were some times whenever I made my own errors or got a little pricey or whatever the case may be, Pete caught up with it. He pays attention to those details. So, Pete, this year, has this been an excellent property year?
Yes, it's been a very good year.
Been a
so
good
far.
property year. I'm hoping that next year will be also, but who knows? My magic wand is not waving and my crystal ball is unclear. But at any rate, we're certainly glad that you joined us today, and we appreciate your sponsorship of the CWTAR Voice for Real Estate. Jimmy,
We're going to do this again next week, aren't we?
we're going to do it again next week.
All right, sounds good. Brent Ward, I assume, will be back.
He's
He's
supposed
away
to be.
today, and always good to have you back in the chair.
Well, I'm going to run away from home for a little while, and I might be back. Thanks again,
Drop some
Pete.
bread crumbs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Pete, thanks so much for being here. Pete Dubuisson with National Property Inspections, one of our sponsors here. Show is always also sponsored by Leaders Mortgage Services, Allstate Insurance, Angie Hooten Hughes is agent, and Bird Attorneys. Thanks to Paul Schilze with Worthy Road Studios for making this available on Facebook and on Facebook Live at the CWTAR Facebook page. We continue with the mid-morning mix at 15 minutes before 11.